Welcome to Topper Talk, your number one Western Kentucky athletics podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Moffitt, and I'm joined by co-host Tyler Bailey. Hilltopper Nation, whether it's happening on the hill or on the road, grab those red towels, stand up and cheer, because it's up next on Topper Talk. Welcome back to another episode of Topper Talk podcast. Glad to be back and talking another WKU football game, our first one of the season, and a big victory. First and foremost, you can follow us on Instagram and on Twitter at Topper_Talk. Follow us on Instagram, or rather, follow us on YouTube at Topper Talk Podcast. Those videos over there just growing like crazy. The followers, listeners, we really appreciate everybody being loyal and just supporting what we do. So, we do ask, share the links, give us some retweets, rate, subscribe, and review. Tyler, man, we got a good, fun episode to talk about. Big victory over USF. I know, you didn't get to attend the game. You had some bachelor party duties that you had to attend to. I understand. Got to support your buddies and be there for them. But are you ready to jump in and talk about, a rather impressive victory against USF?
Yeah, man, I am. Even though I couldn't be there in person, did watch almost every minute of this game. So yeah, I'm ready to jump in here and recap this, boy.
And as always, before we get started, we're going to talk about our sponsor of the episode, and that is the Fireman Moving Company. They are the official moving company of WK Athletics. They are local or long-distance movers that are staffed by current or off-duty firefighters, and they have been professionally moving commercial and residential properties since 1992. They're founded by proud WK alumni. Call them for any and all of your moving needs at 270-791-1755. And make sure you follow them on Instagram at the Fireman Moving Co. And I've said it every time we've talked about them, and I'm going to keep saying it because it's true. I'm not just saying it because they're a sponsor. I would have said it about them, months ago, just because anybody that I know that moves, and when we have moved in the past, we use the Fireman Moving Company, and it's a game changer, literally. They make the life of moving and just that stress of boxing everything up and moving your stuff to a new house so much easier. They're efficient. They're fairly priced. So definitely, if you're moving or you big, small, local, long distance, give those guys a call. Talk to them. Get a price from them, and it's going to be fair. And I promise you, it's going to be worth it. So as we jump into the episode, we're going to talk about, first of all, the Red Towel wrap up. We're going to recap everything that's happened since our last recording. So Tyler, go ahead and give us that Red Towel wrap up since our last episode.
All right, man. So last week or earlier this weekend, cross country Belmont opener. The women finished 7th, men finished 8th. Men led by freshman Jared Sanfus. He finished 37th out of 118th runners. Women led by freshman Kinley Kunkel and Keelan Elmer, who finished 44th and 48th, respectively. Volleyball, they played at the Penn State Invitational, where they beat Colgate 3-1. Volleyball also played Penn State. They lost 3-1, but sadly they had no Briggs. Soccer, they played North Alabama, and they tied 0-0. Volleyball, they played James Madison, and they lost 0-3. And soccer, they played Belmont, and they also tied 0-0. Also coming up in the season in football, Jordan Davis, he is having a pregame concert. They announced that, and it's going to be on the 24th of October, which will be the blackout game versus Liberty. So everyone come out and go to the concert and, maybe drink some adult beverages and get rowdy and get ready to win versus Liberty. So, Moff, back to you.
Appreciate that, man. Yeah, the recap, obviously there's a lot of sports going on. The volleyball, the Penn State Invitational, Paige Briggs missed that first game, and unfortunately we lost. It was a battle, though. If you've looked at the scores, I mean, we were right there. It's not like we got blown out. And being without our preseason conference play of the year, we battled. She did come back and play versus James Madison. Obviously, I don't know if she was 100% or not, but she was back in that game. I'm fairly certain that we got swept, 0-3, but still competitive. You hate to see a couple losses. I hope that doesn't tumble us out of the top 25 for the first time in a long time with volleyball. But it may very well happen. We're at number 22, and I'm not sure if the people doing that voting are going to be aware that we were without our top player returning this year. So we'll keep our eye posted on that, and obviously we'll update that next week when we're doing the Houston Christian recap and talking about the Ohio State preview. And then the Jordan Davis pregame concert that had kind of been floating around out there for a while as news that was news but unofficial. We had the blackout game pregame concert last year with Shaq, and had heard months ago that it was going to be a country concert this year. I don't know anything about Jordan Davis. Is he a big artist? Can you tell me, Tyler?
I mean, he's not my kind of country. I'm more of the old school country. Some of the, I guess you call them outlaw country singers, but I mean, he does have some songs that do sound all right.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be a good time. I mean, a nice pregame concert on South Lawn. I mean, it's going to be a good time, and being it's a blackout game and night game, it's going to be nice and cool, not terribly hot like it was for this USF game. But we're going to jump right into the recap of that game now. Obviously, we've already said it was a victory. WKU did win 41-24 over what I would call an improved South Florida team. I mean, we talked about in the preview episode they were 1-11 last year, turned over coaching staff and a lot of players. So there was a lot of unknowns coming into this game. But after watching them play, a full game now, they were an improved team in my opinion. They're a team that's going to win more than one game this year. I don't know how many games they're going to win, but they were improved. They were solid offensively. Their quarterback was lethal, dual threat. We talked about that in the preview episode, what they expect with what they're bringing to the table. But ultimately, we were able to get the victory. Attendance at the Houch was announced at 15,438 people, which is 65% capacity. And I've already said it was hot outside, man. It was, direct sunlight, 2:30 kickoff. It was hot outside, man. It was not fun. The new side of the stadium was pretty full. Part of me thinks that people were just trying to get in the shade because that side of the stadium was basically in the full shade for the entire game. The berm, the student section filled in very nicely, before the game and as the first quarter was going, especially considering, again, how hot it was outside in the direct sunlight. The berm had a good showing. Then the old side, I mean, you've seen by now, the game's been over for a couple of days now. You've seen pictures and or videos of the old side. Didn't look really good. But again, hot outside. And a lot of those people that were on that side either probably came over to the new side and were sitting in the shade and crowding that side, or they were up on the concourse. As I was walking through the stadium, there were a lot of people that were just up high watching the game from the top of the concourse instead of being actually down in their seats. So don't blame them. It was hot. It was a tough atmosphere, and it did have an effect on the game, as we'll talk about once we get into just recapping how the game went. The atmosphere of the game, tailgating looked really good. South Lawn was full, a lot of people there, a lot of students walking around. So really had a good vibe. USF brought I don't want to say a lot of fans, but they brought a good big group of fans. Their visitor section had a healthy amount of green. Early in the game when they took that early lead and were just kind of had momentum going their way, they were noticeably loud. So I was impressed with the USF contingent, coming up from the Tampa area. I mean, it was nice to see a good visiting squad bring a good crowd with them. So that it was nice to have. I got to meet up with the host of the TNT podcast, Bobby Wilson. Met up with him pregame. In the off season, he had an interview with Austin Reed. We did retweet that. Got to meet up with him, shake his hand, talk to him for several minutes before we headed into the game. The WKU football gave out some free Top Gun T-shirts, which if you're watching the video episode, you see me sporting that right now because I definitely was one of the first 1,000 in the gates when they opened at 1. We were in line, went ahead and got inside, found our seats in the shade, and had one of these red shirts. So wearing it proudly. It's a nice Top Gun shirt. Got the Top Gun poster behind me with the chrome dome. So really like this logo and kind of that just that branding they're putting on this offense that could be high flying this year. As far as the pregame atmosphere, there were some video board issues. I haven't seen it talked about a ton on Twitter, but the pregame video lineup was just very laggy. When you're watching the players introduce themselves, what position they are, who they are, where they're from, really laggy video, kind of disappointing presentation for a video board that's 4 or 5 years old now. And then for a while there, they shut the entire screen off. And if you follow Jeff Nations from the Bowling Green Daily News, he put a picture of that, scoreboard just completely black and turned off before I guess they restarted. They pulled a reboot, started it back up, and then the video was good for the rest of the game. But getting into the game, we started off slow. USF scored first in the ball game on a quarterback keeper with their quarterback Byron Brown. WKU was able to respond with a marquee step rushing touchdown. And then USF responded again with an 84-yard touchdown pass straight down the sideline heading toward the 10th. I mean, this guy was wide open. The defender unfortunately fell. He was wide open. And USF was able to take a lead of 14-7 after the first quarter. In that first quarter, I think it's worth noting that USF had all the momentum. They outgained us 242 yards to 63 in just the first quarter alone. So, at that point in the game, it wasn't looking good. We were down. They had the momentum. Didn't feel like we could get our offense going. There were a lot of drop passes that it seemed like, generally we catch in that first quarter. Malachi Corley did go down with an injury. We saw him get taken off the field. And then there were a lot of missed tackles. It seemed like several times our defensive line was able to get good pressure on their quarterback, but he was just able to elude it and just keep those drives going. And it really was giving me flashbacks to the 2020 season when we played Liberty and they had Malik Willis. It just seemed like we could never quite get him down. He was just always right out of our grasp and just able to continue those drives. So after Malachi went down, obviously we had some other receivers that stepped up and played. I'm going to kick it over to you, Tyler. I know you got to watch the game. So after that, just the first quarter alone, kind of what was your thoughts on just, obviously this new season of football and how we were looking early on in this game?
Well, I may have said a few choice words whenever we were off to that slow start. I'm just not used to – I didn't think I'd be used to watching, receivers just drop pass after pass or Reed overshooting some of his intended targets. And then, of course, whenever Malachi Corley went down, me and the room collectively held our breath because we're like, oh, no. But no, but then I thought about it. I said, man, Western always, it seems like the first game of the season, Western always has to knock that rust off. It happened to us the last few years. We would be playing some FCS school and it'd be a close game or we'd get beat by them because we just had to knock it off and get back into the rhythm of playing, I guess, game speed. But and then you're right. Whenever you mentioned the missed tackles, whenever, maybe they were trying to go for an arm tackle or they wasn't getting a good line on him. But yeah, I mean, it just, I didn't have a good feeling whenever we were outgained, like 243 to 63. I mean, that just wasn't a good feeling to me. So I was wondering what was going on with that slow start.
Yeah, I tried to prepare myself for a slow start because, again, we're on our fourth offensive coordinator in 4 years. We've turned over from Ellis to Kitley to Arbuckle to Hollingshead now. So you kind of almost are expecting those growing pains. And this is the first year in a long time we've talked about having a returning starting quarterback in Austin Reed. So we thought that might balance it off, but we still did start off slowly. But luckily, as we jumped into the second quarter, we were down 14-7. USF tacked on a field goal early in the second quarter to go up 17-7. They had a lot of the momentum on their side. I mentioned that their crowd was loud. I mean, they were loud when they scored, chanting USF. Just it was a noticeable um, just momentum swing there, early, ending the first quarter and early into the second quarter. Luckily, our defense was able to clamp down a little bit. We clawed back. Lucas Canario hit a field goal. And then Austin Reed, before halftime, had his 16 yards scrambling and diving Superman touchdown that I'm sure we've all seen the videos and pictures of to tie the game at 17-17 heading into half. And then when the third quarter got started, WKU took the lead for the first time in the game with a long 42-yard touchdown to Dalvin Smith, where he caught the ball out on the flat in the sideline and was just able to outrun everybody to the end zone. USF then answered back with a Byron Brown touchdown run. And then wide receiver Musa Berry caught a 51-yard touchdown pass for us to regain the lead. And I have to have an asterisk beside this and talk about Musa Berry because Corley had already gone down. After Dalvin Smith caught his touchdown, he got rolled up on and he was out of the game for a while. And I had been talking to a former player of ours who's now a wide receiver trainer and coach, and had been telling him, I was like, man, we got a couple of guys hurt. This guy you've been telling me about, Musa Berry, in the offseason, I was like, man, they're going to have to put him in. We need him to see the field. We're going to have to start seeing what our depth looks like. And literally, within 5 minutes of this conversation happening in DMs, Musa Berry just caught this bomb down the sideline over a USF defender and was able to drag him into the end zone for a nice, just 51-yard touchdown. So I got to give shout out to Steph Brown. I know he's listening. I know I tagged him in a post shortly after it happened. He told me, watch out for this guy. He's a legit wide receiver, and he proved it with a big catch and a touchdown to put us back into the lead. That was kind of midway through the third quarter. There were a lot of punts. We had that small gap of a lead there. Then there was a lot of punts. The end of the third quarter into the fourth quarter, the offenses on both sides just really got stagnant. And I've called a punt fest. Corley was out. Dalvin Smith was out. Dalvin did end up coming back into the game and had more catches. But we saw Musa Berry. We saw Katie Hutchinson, a wide receiver, get more time. And we saw Easton Messer come to the game. And all of those guys had an impact. Obviously, Musa had a touchdown. Then Hutchinson and Easton Messer were both kind of small, slippery, quick slot guys that really were catching the ball in space and making nice plays. So it was nice to see that we do have depth, even with now two of our receivers that were actively in the game, plus Mike Matheson, never even suited up for the game. As we talked about coming into the season and to the preview of this game, he was kind of questionable and not sure. And now he's been announced as week to week heading into the Houston Christian game. So we're without three of our top receivers there for a while. But some other guys, some young guys came in and stepped up, made plays, put us back in the lead and helped us stay there. And then in the fourth quarter, I'm calling him automatic. Lucas Canario hit a 42-yard field goal to make it 34-24. If you remember, my bold prediction, special teams, was Lucas Canario is not going to miss a kick this year. And there were several people on Twitter, social media saying, where did this guy come from? He came from our special team preview episode. We said this guy has a leg. He's the starter. And that 42-yarder was a no-doubter. I mean, that kid has a leg. And then moments later after that field goal gave us the 10-point lead. Jaquez Evans, Donut, we'll call him. I guess he added the sprinkles onto the game, the final nail in the coffin when he had the strip sack of the quarterback and ran it in for a touchdown to complete the scoring at 41-24. WKU was able to cover the spread. We came in 11.5. We won by 17. Good teams win, great teams cover. That's what we did. So Tyler, give me your thoughts on just how this entire game played out. It kind of was a roller coaster of a slow start. Then we were able to clamp down and start moving the ball even with some adversity. Listening to the coaches today, when you have a couple wide receivers go down, we had adversity, and just several other players step up, took the lead, got the lead, and pulled away for the victory. So, how did the game look from your perspective?
Well, you're right. You mentioned the USF contingent that came up there. I remember seeing a video of them on TV, and I mean, it looked like they did bring up a good number of fans, which really surprised me. And I knew they'd probably be loud and obnoxious in there in Houcher Smith Stadium, but no, I mean, I said it in the preview that our defense had to shut down their run and option plays. And starting out, I mean, their quarterback and their really halfback or running back did get some good yardage. I mean, they only had one real big passing play, and I think it went for 80 yards for the touchdown, like you alluded to. But so it was good to see us shut down their passing options that they had, but to shut down their running plays, like I think in the second quarter into the third and fourth quarter, that was just awesome to see. And to see Donut just go in there and just rip that ball away from that quarterback, that man, he was not expecting that. He wasn't ready for it. That got me excited. Um, but I'm kind of surprised Brown got the nod over Bohannon, but he had 166 passing yards and 160 rushing yards by himself. So, and you're right, most of that came in the first half. So it was good that we shut them down. The entire offense, their entire offense had 374 rushing yards. That probably came out, maybe a few in the second half, but it was also good to see Blue Smith get in there, and I think he had 5 catches for 50 yards. It was good to see him, and he had a couple good plays. Also good to see Musa Berry with that 51-yard reception into the end zone. I say one thing that I probably didn't like that I saw was a bunch of the throwing into the flats. I mean, that did kind of seem like kind of a stagnant offense that the coaches were trying to run, but no, I mean, to me, it was a good all around full game. We came in there, we did what we needed to do, we got the win. I mean, it's just a good game to watch on TV. I wish I could have been there, but you're right. I had bachelor party duties, and I was out in North Carolina.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was a good game. I talked about USF leading 14-7 after the first quarter, and then they scored early in the second quarter to be up 17-7. So, but the last 43 minutes of the game, they only scored 10 points. So, basically 3/4 of the game. So they dominated that first 17 minutes. We talked about the disparity in yardage the first quarter, and then they scored early in the second quarter, making it 17-7. Then from there, we made the adjustments and slowed them down, got them off the field, and our offense was able to start moving the ball and scoring some touchdowns. After that, the heat did cause a lot of player cramps. I did want to touch on that. Like I said, it was hot outside as a spectator. I'm sure being down on the field, which is much harder down there, and playing the sport, I mean, there were a lot of delays in the game due to injuries, players cramping up. And we also had a lot of just uncharacteristic false start penalties. I mean, we had several by our wide receivers. Usually if you see a false start penalty, it's one of your linemen flinching, whatever, before the play. But we had several that were, wide receivers out on the edge that were just getting started a little too early. We talked about the drops earlier. But in my opinion, the defense won this game. And I can point to a couple examples of why I think the defense won this game. Early in the fourth quarter, we were up by 7. I talked about the end of the third and going into the fourth. It was just a punt contest. We were just punting it back and forth to each other, basically. We were still up 24-31. USF was driving with the opportunity to tie the game. and we had a pivotal, a key interception by Aaron Key in the end zone. They were on the 4-yard line. He decided to roll out and try to throw a ball, and Aaron Key stepped in front of that and intercepted it and brought it back out of the end zone. So huge pivotal play there, kept them off the board, got the ball back in our hands. And then obviously, once Canario made it a 10-point lead in the fourth quarter there, USF got the ball back with, 3-ish minutes left to play. And we're kind of in hurry up, like, hey, they need to do something. They need to score because they're going to have to score onside kick and get the ball back and try to score again. Jaquez Evans got to the quarterback, and then he wasn't just going to be happy with a sack. This man just ripped the ball from the quarterback, took it from him, sunned him, and took it in for a big man touchdown. We talked about Donut. We talked about that single season sack record. He said, I got 12 on the schedule. There was one of them, got his sack. So bold predictions right there, looking really good. So in my opinion, defense sealed it. Offense looked pretty good. Obviously, there's some cleaning up to do, but the defense, in my opinion, sealed that game and made sure we had a victory. I want to jump into some stats from this game. USF's quarterback Byron Brown was 15 out of 34 with 166 yards and 1 touchdown with 2 interceptions. He was also their leading rusher with 25 carries for 160 yards and 2 more touchdowns. So 3 total touchdowns from their quarterback, over 320 yards of offense from their quarterback. When I say that this guy was shades of Malik Willis in 2020, like, this guy was giving us fits. I mean, that dual threat that we talked about in the preview, containing their run, he was tough. And several times we had him in the backfield, for potential losses, but we couldn't tackle him. We couldn't get him down. And hopefully, I don't think we're going to see another quarterback as mobile and as elusive as he is the rest of the season. But we definitely have some cleaning up to do on the tackling side of the ball. And I know if you listen to the Tyson Summers interview today, talking about the recap of the game and talking about Houston Christian, that was one of the things he pointed out was we have to clean up tackling. And we did clean up tackling for the latter part of 3 quarters of the game. But that first quarter of the game, when they gashed us, he hurt us with his arms, not so much, but his legs. I mean, 25 carries, 160 yards. I mean, that's over 6 yards a pop. That's pretty good, plus 2 touchdowns on the ground. So their leading wide receiver was Coffrey Brown. He had three receptions for 95 yards and a touchdown. He was the one that had that 84-yard long touchdown. And then looking at the WKU stat leaders, Austin Reed finished 29 of 50 for 336 yards with 2 touchdowns passing, and then that 1 Superman touchdown run. Running back Davion Irvin Poindexter finished with 10 carries, 45 yards, and Dalvin Smith led us from the wide receiver room with 7 catches for 97 yards and a touchdown. I want to talk about some of the key indicators of the game, just some of the things we want to touch on and highlight that are generally going to balance the game, and determine who wins or loses. The first one's total yards. USF outgained WKU 540 yards to 465. And basically half of that, 260-ish, was in the first quarter. So beyond the first quarter, they didn't do much. We talked about that first 17 minutes they dominated. Then after that, we buckled down and kind of clamped down and took over that game, took the momentum. Offense started clicking, and we got them off the field. So then USF was also 8 of 21 on third downs and 4 of 5 on fourth downs. Every time if they were midfield and it was third and short and then turned into fourth and short, they were going for it. They were playing with house money, 1-win team from last year, had nothing to lose, and they were converting a lot of those. And most of it was that mobile quarterback. He'd run out, and 4 out of 5 on fourth downs is good for them, bad for us. Looking at the WKU side, we were 6 out of 16 on third down and 1 out of 2 on fourth down. Here's the big one. This is the one that, like I touched on earlier, I thought the defense won this game. Turnovers. USF had 3 turnovers. Their quarterback threw 2 interceptions and he had a fumble. WKU had 0. No turnovers for the top. So, in my opinion, that was what tipped the game to our favor. I said the defense won the game. They put the nail in the coffin. They kept them off the board. especially in that second half, just took over the game. And then the last indicator is the time of possession, which basically was a wash. USF had the ball for 30 minutes and 29 seconds. WKU had the ball for 29 minutes and 31 seconds. So basically a wash there. So Tyler, I want to jump in. We've talked about the team, the game, the win, the stats of players on both teams. I guess what are your thoughts on just the overall play of all our Hilltoppers?
Well, I mean, I think the overall play is pretty good. You're right. Defense, I believe, won this game. They stood strong when they had to. I know the old adage, bend don't break. Once they got past that first quarter, I mean, there was no bending it. There was no breaking, but there sure as hell wasn't no bending. They pretty much shut them down, took over, dictated how their offense was going to play. And seeing how they couldn't throw the ball, I mean, all we had to do is focus on getting back there and limiting their runs, and I think our defense did that. Two interceptions. That's always good, especially one went in the end zone. Aaron ran it out. And I'm going to go back to that strip sack. I mean, that was just entertaining to watch. That's good scientific football if I've ever seen it in my life. But I mean, it was good to see the running back, so many wide receivers spread the ball. We talked about some of the drop passes. He just Reed overshot Burt a few times when Burt had distance on his guy, and Reed just overthrew it. That's something I'm sure they can work on and they can fix. And our running backs, Devion Urban Poindexter, he had 10 carries, 45 yards. I'd like to see that get more. Granted, our passing was doing the job. It was good to see Step get that first TD of the season. I know Malachi Corley wanted it. Whenever he got tackled down at that 2-yard line, I could see it on the TV. He really wanted that touchdown. So, yeah, I mean, the stats, it's always good to be winning the turnover battle 3-0 or anything to 0. It's just crazy that USF gained us, but half of it was in the first quarter. And to me, that does blow my mind. But defense was quick to fix that and quick to remedy that. Oh man, I think this was a good game all around, and I was pleased with the way that we played after the first quarter.
Yeah, I'm never gonna dog on quarterback one, Austin Reed, but he had an average game. He didn't have a great blow you out game, with his completion percentage and yardage touchdowns. He had a very good game. I was more impressed at our mix of yards there. We had 336 passing and 129 rushing, so very solid. And we've talked about the three receivers that we were without. Matheson, Corley was out. After the first 6 minutes of the game, Corley was gone. Dalvin was out for quite a bit of the game. We still had 10 different wide receivers catch balls. So, and Corley in the first 6 minutes of the game was like 6 catches for 55 yards. So this man was about to tear USF up if he didn't, get drove into the ground on the last catch and, hurt his sternum, bruised ribs. We hope it is. We hope he comes back soon and healthy, but doesn't rush back. We want him back for Ohio State if he's ready. But I was just overall really impressed with the team, with the adversity, with guys that stepped up, guys that made plays, the depth of the wide receivers. We talked about it. Some people showed some concern for it. But when you're without 3 of your top wide receivers, Austin Reed might have a little bit of a down game when he's throwing to guys that are 7th, 8th, 9th down his depth chart in the receiving room. So overall, I was still very pleased with the offense. Listening to Coach Helton, there's in Hollingshead, there's plenty to clean up, plenty to get better, execute better, and that's what this Houston Christian game is going to be for coming up next. Now, every game we're going to do some grades for our different position groups. So Tyler, what would your grade be for the WKU offense against USF?
I'm going to give them a B plus. They came out, they did what they were supposed to do, but at times they were kind of sloppy. Like we've alluded to, we've said ad nauseum, bunch of drop passes. a bunch of miscues on passing. Reed had a few passes that he was lucky that weren't intercepted. They very well could have been, but they fell to the turf harmlessly, thankfully. So yeah, I'm gonna give them a B plus.
I'm going to go with an A, and I'm going to qualify that because one, we started so slow. We started very slow. They were down 14-7 first quarter, 17-7 early in the second. And then once we took the lead into the third quarter, from like the 8-minute mark of the third quarter to midway through the fourth quarter before we took the 10-point lead. We had a 7-point lead before Canario kicked that field goal to make it a 10-point lead. We were up 7, and it felt so stagnant. It just felt like our offense wasn't being aggressive enough to move the ball down the field and give us a cushion of a lead that we needed to feel comfortable. Like going through the third and into the fourth, I was still on the edge of my seat. Like, we need points. We need more points than what we have right now. Before that Canario field goal made it a 10-point lead with about 3 minutes to go. And then you kind of started to breathe like, okay, I don't think they have enough time to go down and score, get the ball back and score again. I'm still going to give us an A, even with the slow start, even with a stagnant third into the fourth quarter. We still were able to overcome the adversity of wide receivers being down. Had a good overall mix of passing and rushing yards. And I hope that continues on into the rest of the season. And hopefully we get healthier with our wide receivers and we just see just more consistency from that group, more catches, less drops. Obviously, more drives that are sustained, stay on the field, and just finish drive with points. It doesn't have to be 6 every time, but put Canario out there, let him kick them field goals. That boy's got a leg. So I'm giving them boys an A. Tyler, what about the defensive side of the ball? What do you give our defense for a grade?
I'm gonna give them an A. You're right. This defense really sealed away this game. Really kept their USF's offense from scoring points with the interception in the end zone. Then you had another interception, and of course the strip. Well, I'm just going to call that a boss man sack. Boss man rip away, scoop and score. That's really what he did. I think. I think the defense really came up strong, really shut down that run game. After the first quarter, it was a slow start, but after that, hey, they did a dang good job.
I'm gonna give them a B, and I think a B is still really good. But I'm gonna take into account that slow start and that for us that fast start for USF. 260 yards in the first quarter there, and then I think they had 280 the rest of the way. The last 3 quarters. So the defense still stepped up. They still won the game for us. But there could be other games this year where if we start that slowly or let someone else start that fast, we may not be able to dig out of that hole. Especially with the adversity we've faced in this game with multiple wide receivers going down, and it just being the first game of the season, knocking the rust off. But the defense did tighten down, look good. Forced some turnovers, took the ball away, and sealed the victory for us. So I think a B is fair, and that's what I'm gonna give them. What about special teams, Tyler? What's your score for special team guys?
Oh, special teams getting an A plus from me on this game. I mean, you had Tom Ellard, which we talked to him at Top of Fest, and he made a joke like, "Come on, man, mess up so I can get out there." Well, hey, he got his opportunity this time. On his punts, he averaged 43.5 yards for his 6 punts, and he got 2 inside the 20-yard line. And then you had Canario going for 2 for 2 on field goals and 5 for 5 on extra points. I think they played their part excellent. There's nothing I can say that these guys could have did better.
Yeah, special teams are definitely an A. I mean, Eller did his thing. I think he had a long, like a 51-yarder, like you said, 2 inside the 20. So Eller did his thing. Canario came in, was consistent, had a big leg, 2 for 2 on field goals. So definitely an A for the special teams. What about the coaching staff? What do you give them as a grade?
See, I think I'm just going to put them together. I think a B minus. I think some of their coaching choices at the beginning, like you said, stagnant offense, wasn't really being aggressive, which was another one of my keys to victory. Come out and play our brand of football. I don't think we did there for a little bit, and that led to punts and punts and punts. But they did fix that. But what you said earlier about it later on in the season, playing against a better team, that could come back to bite us in the butt. So I'm gonna give them a C plus.
Yeah, I'm gonna give him a B. I mean, a lot of coaching is about making adjustments. And the offensive side of the ball, obviously Hollingshead and Helton had plenty of adversity to overcome with the wide receivers being down. We're able to keep the run game and make it stronger into the second half of the game and keep us on the field. And then defensively, we talked about Tyson Summers in the offseason. He had a solid season last year and expecting a lot of big things this year. Thinking he may be a hot commodity to keep on to after this season. Really good adjustments. Was able to slow down the USF offense and keep them from scoring, just 10 points in the final 43 minutes. So I'm going to give those guys a B. I think they did a solid job and made adjustments, and that's what won the game for us. What about for the fans? What you got? You might not have been there, but you still saw it on TV. What was your grade for the fans? Just even watching from TV.
All right, now I'm including me on this. I'm giving myself a C plus. It is opening weekend of the college football season. Week one, everyone's so excited for college football to finally return. And now before I saw what the announced number was, sitting there on TV and watching the replays, and yet and the on the old side, I mean, it just looked bare. I mean, then you told me that people was hiding getting in the concourse to stay cool, but it was bad optics on a nationally televised game. Um, I, I I know people will go down to B Dubs and Double Dogs to watch a game and some of them other sports places, but man, come on, fans, we got to get in the stands and support this team. Let them know we're there for them and let them hear us cheering for them. I'm going to be there for Houston Christian. I'm in town. There's no way I'm going to miss that. I ain't got no more bachelor parties to go to. So, yeah, I'm going to give them a C plus, man.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with the same. I'm gonna give them a C as well. We got to talk to our friends and families about fall weddings and bachelor parties, guys. Don't do it. Look at the schedule. You know who we're cheering for. You know what we're doing on Saturdays. But yeah, the overall fans. I mean, the turnout was disappointing. If if that it could have been better. I mean, that's no way of dancing around that 15,000 announced. Whatever it really was, I'm not sure. It's hard to tell when it being so hot and people being in the shade. But this team deserves 18 to 20, if not a sellout, every game. We should be pushing 18 to 20,000. I do have higher hopes for the Houston Christian game coming up this weekend. It is a 6 p.m. kickoff. The temperature is supposed to be lower. It's going to be a parents' weekend, so there's a lot of variables and factors there, which lead me to believe that the attendance for the next game will be much better. But it should be better every game, in my opinion. We should be pushing sellouts. We should have better fan support for what this team and this program has done for the last 10 years. And it's just baffling to me that we don't do better. If it's the community, if it's marketing, if it's ticket prices, if it's whatever it is, the heat outside to go. So it just blows my mind. I want us to do better. I want better fan support at every game. So I'm gonna kick it over to you. Give us your final thoughts on the USF victory that was before we look forward to the Houston Christian matchup. Muted.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm going to steal something from the Moonshine Throwdown podcast that I remember hearing years ago, and it's always stuck with me. The hidden 10 minutes, the last 5 minutes of the second quarter, first 5 minutes of the third quarter. We absolutely dominated them two segments, a hidden 10 minutes, and it showed. We won that. We won the game. It was a good victory. Got into some Twitter spats with some of their fans. That now they know their place. You can't dethrone us just yet. It was like a good game. Wish more fans came out. I think the stadium was 65% full if the announced attendance was correct. Um, but guys, good game. Go Tops. On to the next one, man.
Yeah, and just kind of putting the bow on the USF victory. It was announced today by the Conference USA accounts that Jaquez Evans was named the Defensive Player of the Week in Conference USA for his strip sack score. And then Lucas Canario, with his performance, 2 on field goals, was named the Special Teams Player of the Week. So that's a good way to end the week. It just been a lot of speculation and what to expect with this team and USF coming into this game. So it's nice to get a nice, solid, 17-point victory. Go back to the drawing board. We've got plenty of stuff to work on and clean up before we get ready for the Houston Christian preview up next. All right, with that, we're going to jump into the Houston Christian University preview. That is the Huskies, formerly Houston Baptist University, now known as Houston Christian. We do face them this coming Saturday. That's September 9th at 6 p.m. at Houghton Smith Stadium. The game will be on ESPN Plus. It is a whiteout game. It is Parents Weekend. It is a beautiful day. Heading into fall, it's a high of 79. So not going to be near as deathly hot as it was this past weekend for USF. So high of 79, an evening game, whiteout, Parents Weekend. I'm expecting a much, much, much better crowd, much better turnout, fan support. Eliminate your excuses. We just eliminated all of them. Weather's going to be nice. It's a night game. Come out, support the Tops. Now, the ESPN Power Index loves WKU. Loves them. Probably should be more, but loves them. 96% chance of winning, 4% for Houston Christian. Both teams enter this game 1-0. Houston Christian beat NAIA member Arkansas Baptist 66-0 in their home opener, which was their third highest point total ever. And WKU and Houston Christian have only played once in the past, and that was in 2016, with WKU winning 50-3. Now, Houston Christian is breaking in a new head coach, just coaching his first game and got a victory. His name is Braxton Harris. He's only the second ever head coach in the program's history. They've just had their best recruiting class in program history. It was top 10 in the FCS. It was number 1 in Texas, and they had a top 40 transfer recruiting class in the nation. And in my opinion, that says a lot about the talent that they have on this roster. And we'll jump in and talk about some of those guys here in a little bit. But, just a few years ago, we raided the cabinets and, took Kitley from them, Bailey Zappi, the Stearns brothers, Ben Ratzlaff, instant plug and play offense back in 2021. I don't know how those guys were ranked and recruited coming out of high school when they joined Houston Baptist. But for them to have their best recruiting class ever in history and coming off a 66-0 win in their first game, tells me that this is a talented team. Even if FCS coming to town and maybe being overlooked because they're not on the same level, so to speak. I don't think this is a team that we need to just look over and say, hey, they're just going to roll over and take this L, because I think they've got a lot of talent on their team. And talking about who they're led by, they're led offensively by quarterback Colby Suits. He's a 6'4", 240-pound senior. In his first game this year, he was 7 out of 11 for 139 yards and 2 touchdowns. He's appeared in 16 games with 8 starts, formerly at the FBS level with University of Louisiana Monroe. And then he also played in his current offensive coordinator system when he was in high school. So that's a little bit of an advantage to him and to that team and system that, they have familiarity with each other. And I also thought it was interesting that in their 66-0 win, that their backup quarterback came in, Justin Formby, and he was 9 for 9 with 93 yards and 1 touchdown. So, that tells me that they've got talent on the roster. Even in a blowout win, their backup comes in and has a good game. 9 out of 9, 93 yards, 1 touchdown. You'll take that from your backup quarterback all day, every day. So if for some reason that star does go down, they've got a serviceable backup there, ready to come in. Also, offensively, they were led by a trio of running backs in their first game. Their first guy leading them in rushing was Champ Dozier. He's a 5'8", 180-pound freshman. He had 11 rushes for 97 yards and 3 touchdowns. He was a transfer from TCU. So, redshirt freshman running back, starting for him, leading them in rushing, pretty impressive. Then they also had Jesse Valenzuela, who's a 5'11", 180-pound junior. He had 3 rushes for 62 yards. He averaged 20.7 yards per carry. So, home run hitter there, guy that can break off a big long run quick on you. And then they also have RJ Smith, who's a 6', 175-pound junior who had 12 carries for 60 yards. And then also offensively, they had 10 players that caught passes. No players had more than 3 receptions. And they were led by wide receiver A.J. Wilson that had 3 catches for 66 yards and 1 touchdown. They also had Carl Reynolds that had 2 catches for 55 yards. And Aaron Sotelo that had 2 catches for 46 yards. So, Tyler, I want to get your thoughts on this HCU offense. Obviously they can put up points, 66-0. And then we just talked about, just a plethora of talent, a couple quarterbacks, a few running backs, several wide receivers, just spreading the ball around. What are your thoughts on this offense, looking at them coming into the game?
Well, one word comes to my mind. That's balance. I mean, this is a very balanced offense, and Kobe, their quarterback, 6'4", 240. That's a big boy. I mean, that's a big boy. And apparently he can sling the ball. 139 yards and 2 TDs. And you're right, their backup quarterback, 9 of 9, and 1 TD and he had 93 yards. So both QBs are going to be good, I believe, whenever you put them in the game. The running backs, I mean, they all put up good numbers. I mean, 11 rushes, 97 yards. Transfer from TCU. So apparently this boy can do some, or else TCU wouldn't have put him on the team. I think we're going to have to contain them, but also we're going to definitely have to look out for their passing game because, like I said, it's very balanced. I think I don't have it written down, but I think they're off between their passing yards and the rushing yards. I think the rushing yards is like 240 something. Their passing yards 230 something. It's really, really balanced. So that's my thoughts on their offense, man.
Yeah, honestly, they were kind of remind me a lot of us in our first game. I mean, we played 3 different running backs. Urban Poindexter led us in yards. Marquise Stepp had a touchdown. Elijah Young saw the field and had yards. We also had 10 wide receivers that caught passes. They had 10 wide receivers that caught passes. But you look at their balance of their offense. You were saying it was very balanced. It was 241 rushing, 232 passing. So you were right on the head with what they had offensively. They were very balanced. They didn't pass the ball a lot. Their starting quarterback threw the ball 13 times. Backup came in, threw the ball 9 times, so 22 total passes. So very balanced offense. Seems like they want to lean more on the run. And we saw how our run defense looked in that first game with USF. That mobile quarterback was able to gash us for a lot of yards. So something to keep your eye on. This is an offense that can move the ball and wants to put up a lot of points and yards. And they've got just a multitude of guys that can spread the ball around and be playmakers. We talked about a couple of home run hitter running backs and 10 wide receivers deep. That's a lot of guys. Obviously the top 2 or 3 are going to be who you want to focus on, but they've got playmakers, and that's just it's not been that long ago. When Maine and Central Arkansas were here, upsetting us during those Sanford years. Let us not forget. Let us not overlook these teams of lower division. However you want to look at them. They're not quite to our level. There's still plenty of talent on that team. We talked about them being a top 40 national ranking in transfer. So they have a lot of P5 guys. You talked about the TCU running back. I mean, TCU was in the national championship game this last year. We saw them lose a shootout to Colorado game one this year with a lot of points on the board. So that's a talented boy, and they've got several other guys that have transferred in that are going to help them be a really good team this year. And obviously, that 66-0 first game says a lot. Turning over and looking at their defensive side of the ball, they're led by preseason All-American linebacker Rodney Dansby. He's a 6 foot, 225-pound junior. He led the team with 10 tackles in the opener. They also have 2022 Southland Conference leader in tackles for loss in Jalix Hunt. He's a 6'4", 248-pound senior defensive end. Last year, he had 87 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, 7 sacks, and 3 forced fumbles. And then they also have Xavier McIntyre, who's a 5'10", 185-pound senior linebacker, and Zay Smith, who is a 6'1", 270-pound defensive lineman. Both of those guys added 8 tackles each. And then you have linebacker Josh Ferguson, who's a 6 foot, 220-pound junior, who had 7 tackles, 3.5 tackles for loss, and a sack. So again, just looking at their stats and their players, it looks like they have a very swarming defense. Guys that just get to the ball, want to be disruptive, want to get off the field and put the ball back in their offensive hands. So again, very, reminds me a whole lot of what we want to be, what we want to do. Then looking at their team defense, in their first game, they only allowed 132 yards versus Arkansas Baptist. Now, granted, that's an NAIA team, but that's still just an impressive showing in game one of the season because, we all know we're knocking off rust. They're adding a lot of transfer players, just like is the norm in college football. And they were able to put that all together and have a really solid game. So, again, something to be aware of. Not just a team of guys who can't make plays. They have plenty of guys that can make plays and are going to be looking to come in and upset us. Looking at the rest of their defense, their secondary is led by preseason all-conference cornerback Davion Hargrove. He's a 6'1", 175-pound junior. And also Jordan Oliver, who is a 5'11", 170-pound senior cornerback. Well, Tyler, want to get your thoughts on their defense. Obviously, a lot of playmakers there, just a lot of talent. I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat that. I don't want to just look over and past them. What's your thoughts on this HCU defense coming into the game?
Well, I think it's very impressive that they have a preseason All-American linebacker. I think these guys are going to want to come in and really try to assert themselves, try to show off because, I mean, they're coming from the Southland Conference. I think they would love nothing more than to upset or get some sacks on a Conference USA quarterback, especially one as highly touted as Austin Reed, and really try to cause havoc on our offense. I mean, this defense, it does look pretty, that's good numbers. They have Jalix Hunt, 87 tackles, 11.5 tackles for loss, and 7 sacks, 3 forced fumbles. I don't think they're going to cause any problems, but I am impressed with this defense for an FCS school, man.
Yeah, I think our offensive line is up to the task. I mean, we had a really good game against USF. We kept Austin Reed pretty clean. I'm pretty sure we didn't allow a sack. I don't recall a sack being allowed. He was able to step up and avoid pressure a couple times. So I have a lot of faith in our offensive line and what we're going to do. So again, I think this is it's a good team. It's going to be a good test for us. And we have some question marks coming into game 2, just like any team does. We've got things we need to clean up. We've got injuries. We've got, just things we need to get better at. And let's not look beyond this team because I think they're a solid team. They're going to be looking to come in and get an upset victory. This could be, I didn't look at their total schedule, but this could be, kind of their Super Bowl, their big game of the season. And obviously they're going to want to have a good game, against their top competition. So, Tyler, I want to get your key to victory for WKU. What do we need to do against Houston Christian to make sure that we win this ball game?
All right, so my first one is don't play down to their level. We've done this in the past with the FCS schools, and we have been beaten by them. Look at UMaine and some other schools. We don't need to do that. We need to play our ball and set the tone, show them what we're going to do and how this game's going to be ran.
Yeah, I agree. My key to victory, one of them is going to be start fast. Don't start slow. That was one of my keys to victory last game. Before USF was we need to start fast. We've seen slow starts historically. We kind of saw the same against USF, even though we did come out and score. Marquis Stepp had that rushing touchdown, but then after that, we just got kind of stagnant and let them be able to lead and take the momentum of the game. We don't want to do that. In any sport, whether it's basketball, football, whatever, you don't want to let quote unquote lesser quality opponent stick around, because the longer they hang around, the more they start to rally behind themselves and feel like they can pull off this upset. So we need to put them away early. We need to start fast, put points on the board, and just leave this no doubt. We don't want an upset to happen. Um, then we also need to, I guess, spread the ball around. We need to sustain drives. We already know that we're going to be without Malachi Corley. We know Mike Matheson is doubtful. He was listed week to week, so not really high expectations. No need to rush either one of those guys back necessarily for this game. With OSU and Troy, in the next 2 weeks, I'd rather those guys rest and get healthy and be healthy for those two games if we can. So we need to obviously clean up our offense, clean up the drop balls, sustaining drives, just finishing drives with points, putting more points on the board. And I'd really like to see us kind of stretch our depth a little bit, pull away kind of like they did with that 66-0 win. I'd like to see us put this game out of reach and let some of those second and third string guys get in and get some repetitions in for that game experience. Because obviously we want to come out of this game healthy as well. We did see a couple guys go down. There's already been injuries preseason wise, and then game one. So we want to be heading into the Ohio State game as healthy as possible. Putting ourselves in the best position and having the best chance to try to go to Columbus and pull off an upset there. Tyler, you got any more keys?
But yes, I do. Um, I'm going to say make them a one-dimension team. Like I said earlier, their offense in the first game was very balanced. You take one of them away, so they're not keeping us guessing. Basically, we tell them what they can and cannot do, kind of like what we did with USF. They obviously weren't a passing team, so we just had to focus on the run, and hopefully we can do the same things to Houston Christian. And I'm going to pay a little bit tribute to our Corvette heritage in the last keys of victory, and that's going to be get revving earlier. Kind of like what you said earlier, how we got to not take so long to get in our groove. Hopefully, we don't do that in this upcoming game because, yeah, they would love nothing more. I feel like than to beat us. You're probably right. This probably is our Super Bowl, and there's no reason to let them hang around or get any hope that they're going to beat us. We need to shut them down and shut them out early, set the tone, and just dominate the game.
Yeah, I agree 100%. We need to put them away early, leave no doubt, make it be a comfortable victory, not one that into the third and fourth quarter we're worried about what could or may happen. So put them away early, get this victory. Who are you going to tab as your MVT, your most valuable topper?
All right, so last week I went with Austin Reed. This time I'm going with Jaquez Evan Donut. I want the opposing QB. I want him to be scared to snap the ball every time because he knows that there is an edge or a linebacker coming right at him, and as soon as he drops back to pass, I want him to feel a donuts, donut coming right up on his back. And hey, if Donut could get back there a few years ago, that Clowney guy from South Carolina, I think that's playing Michigan, really just got back in the backfield, disrupted one play, and got a forced fumble. If Donut could do that and really just assert himself, I think that would be awesome. So yeah, that's going to be my MVT, Donut Evans.
I'm sticking on the offensive side of the ball this week. I do think our defense is going to be key to this game. I think with the balance that they're going to show us and try to force upon us, I think we need to be really stout on the defensive side of the ball and keep the big plays in front of us. I think that's important. Whether they're running or passing, not get fooled by play actions, not get out of position, out of scheme, and keep those big plays in front of us. But I'm going to go with Austin Reed. I may be a broken record, but I think Austin Reed, I don't want to say needs to have a bounce back game. I mean, he had 330 plus passing yards last game, 2 touchdowns, and a rushing touchdown. So counted for 3 touchdowns. Had a solid game, but just completion percentage and just efficiency wise, quarterback rating wise, didn't have his greatest game against USF. I'd like to see him bounce back and just, really kind of rip them apart. I'm talking a 400 or 500 yard game, 5, 6 touchdowns, just flex who he is, show that he's, that potential NFL draft pick, that he's the guy leading this offense, no matter what wide receivers we have out there, and just put them away. So, in my opinion, it's going to start with Austin Reed and his command of the offense and lead them down the field and scoring as many points as possible. Tyler, I want to hear your score prediction now. What do you got for WKU versus Houston Christian coming off their 66-0 win? What you got for them?
I see earlier I predicted a 70-13 victory, and whenever I was looking up this team, I was contemplating leaving them at I think it was 13. What was it? Yeah, it's right here. Yeah, 70-13. I was contemplating bringing our points down just a little bit, but I think I'm going to leave it at 70-13. We were all really close in the USF game. We were off by just like a few points. So I feel like this one's going to be. I think I'm sticking with it. 70-13 WKU victory. Tops when you win. It's lit, baby. Let's go.
I don't think you could be wrong. I think that definitely could happen. I think the disparity in talent and depth should show itself, and I think, I don't think we'll aim for a 70 piece, but it happened last year. It could definitely happen again. We scored 41 on USF, and we left a lot of points on the field. Quite frankly, we didn't finish a lot of drives. If we clean that up, potentially against someone of lower ranking, there's no doubt that we could put more points on them. So my score prediction a little bit higher than the last game, but not quite as 70 high as you. I'm going with 56-10, a solid and convincing WKU victory. Hopefully, we put the pedal to the metal early, score a lot of points in that first quarter, second quarter, and get the majority of the starters out, after halftime, and let some of that young, experienced depth that we have get into the game and get some game experience. I'd love to see that. I'd love us to come out of this game healthy, like I said earlier, and hopefully it's a convincing victory and not one that we're, in doubt, going late into the game like we were for USF. So that's it for the preview. We've now had a recap of a really fun victory versus USF, and then a nice a preview of Houston Christian and kind of what to expect from them. From the FCS level, but still just a high quality, good offensive team that can put up points, and we need to be aware of who their playmakers are. So I feel like we did a good job of touching on who those playmakers are for them. So Tyler, I guess give me your final thoughts for HCU, and then take us the heck out of here.
Man, I was excited about week 1 of college football. Watching the Tops get back out there on that field. I'm equally as excited for week 2. Thankfully, I'm going to be in the stands for this game. I'm ready for them to come to town, and so Western can get that big victory. It's not. I think I see us doing 70 because we did it to FIU last year, and I know I shouldn't be comparing the two, but I got the feeling we can do it. Uh, Everybody, bring everyone in your family, bring all your friends. Heck, you could probably bring your dog. I'm sure they probably let your dog in up there and just walk that dog around the stadium and just have fun with it. Because this tops team needs the support. It needs the community and the fans there in the stands making noise. Like I said earlier, letting them know that we appreciate what they do. We support them through all the adversity that we may face, even though like a wide receiver one going down. Like you said, I don't want him to be rushed back because I'd like to have him healthy for a couple later games. But I think this game is going to be an easy victory. I hope I'm not wrong by saying that. I don't want to sound pretentious or uh, my ego too big, but I feel like this Tops team can easily win this game. Um, so I guess with that, everyone have a good night. And Moff, who has it better than us?
Nobody, buddy.
Go Tops.
Go Tops. Later, guys.